Next is access policies. 1. This option only influences how you access bucket policy permissions. 2. Public permissions. When activated, it disregards any buckets or objects having public permissions granted via bucket policies. Third, on enabling this setting, access to a bucket with a public policy is restricted to only AWS services and authorized users within the bucket owner's account. Cross-account access. This setting blocks all cross-account access to a bucket with a public policy except by AWS services, while still allowing users within the account to manage the bucket. Existing policies. It does not modify existing bucket policies, but it does ignore any existing bucket policies that grant public access, thereby blocking public access and any cross-account access configurations. Sixth, ACLs and public access. Keep in mind that with this option enabled, if you have any ACLs granting public access to buckets and objects, they will remain publicly accessible. And block all public access. If you wish to block all public access to buckets and objects, opt for the block all public access option. Okay, next, bucket policies. In order to grant other AWS accounts or AWS users access to bucket and the objects within it, a bucket policy needs to be attached. Principal definition. As you are granting access to a user or an account, a bucket policy must define a principal, which can be an account, user, role, or service. The principal statement is typically listed within the bucket policy. Security management. When using bucket policies, the security is managed by Amazon S3. Supplementing ACLs. Bucket policies can supplement and in many cases replace legacy ACL based access policies. A policy size limit. Amazon S3 support a bucket policy size limit of up to 20 kilobyte. Next, when to use a bucket policy. First, grant cross-account permissions. So when you need to grant cross-account permissions to other AWS accounts or users in another account without using IAM roles. Second, IAM policy size limits. Encounter situations where IAM policies reach the size limits for users, groups, and roles. Amazon S3 environment. When you prefer to keep access control policies in the Amazon S3 environment. User policies versus bucket policies. Both bucket and user policies support granting permissions for all Amazon S3 operations. However, user policies are primarily for managing permissions for users in your account. Now we'll see IAM policies. So use IAM to manage access to your Amazon S3 resources. Second, create IAM users, groups, and roles in your account and attach access policies to them, granting them access to AWS resources, including Amazon S3. You need to understand that there are maximum size limitations for IAM policies for users, groups, and roles. IAM policies have a 2 kilobyte size limit for users, 5 kilobyte for groups, and a 10 kilobyte for roles. No principal stanza in user policy. So notice that there is no principal stanza. So there is no principal keyword. There is no principal stanza listed in the user policy, as the principal is whichever user the policy is applied to. So when to use IAM user policies? First, control access to AWS services other than Amazon S3. IAM policies allow for easier centralized management of all your permissions. Manage numerous Amazon S3 buckets. So when you need to manage numerous Amazon S3 buckets, each with different permissions requirement, IAM policies will be easier to manage than having to define a large number of Amazon S3 bucket policies. This way you can focus on having fewer, more detailed IAM policies. Third, access control in IAM environment. So when you prefer to keep access control policies in the IAM environment. Okay, next topic is pre-signed URLs. So first, default object privacy. By default, all objects and buckets are private. Only the object owner has permission to access these objects. Second, shared via pre-signed URL. So the object owner can share their objects with others by creating a pre-signed URL. So this is for S3 objects, and this grants time-limited permission to download the objects. So by default, all objects are private, but if you need to share with outside world, you can create a pre-signed URL which has time limitation, and that pre-signed URL is private and you share with them, and then they can access that object and probably download them or something, but it will be expire after some time. So creating a pre-signed URL. So you must provide your security credentials, specify a bucket name, an object key, an HTTP method put for uploading objects, and an expiration date and time. Access via pre-signed URL. Anyone who receives the pre-signed URL can access the object. For instance, if you have a private video in your bucket, you can share it by generating a pre-signed URL which is valid for a limited period of time. Temporary access to S3. So pre-signed URLs can be used to grant temporary access to Amazon S3 resources. They can be embedded in websites, used in command line clients to download objects, or generated programmatically to allow a user to upload an object to a bucket. Okay, pre-signed URL, some considerations. 1. Valid security credentials. Individuals with valid security credentials have the ability to create a pre-signed URL. So herein also we have access control mechanism and necessary permissions to ensure successful access to an object using this URL. It should be created by someone equipped with the required permissions. Credential types. There is a variety of credentials you can employ for creating these URLs. An IAM instance profile valid for up to 6 hours. The AWS security token service, which when signed with enduring credentials like those of the AWS account, root user, or an IAM user, can last up to 36 hours. And the IAM user itself, which remains valid for as long as 7 days when using the AWS signature version 4. Okay. And last, temporary token. It is worth noting that if a pre-signed URL is generated using a temporary token, its expiration will be in tandem with the token's own expiration, despite any later expiry time denoted during the URL's creation. Okay. S3 object ownership and features. S3 object ownership originally belonged to the uploader. Ownership change. So there is a new feature. This is a new AWS feature where you can change the ownership. So by default, whoever creates the S3 bucket or the object, that person automatically becomes the owner. Third, Amazon S3 object ownership modes. So there are a couple of modes. Object writer. The account that is writing the object owns the object. So writer owns the object. Then you have a bucket owner preferred. The bucket owner will own the object if uploaded with the bucket owner full control canned ACL. So there is a ACL called bucket owner full control. So the bucket owner will own the object if this is a canned ACL, and without this setting and the canned ACL, the object is uploaded to the bucket but remains owned by the uploading account. So whoever owns the account, but there is a canned ACL, bucket owner full control. So otherwise, whoever has uploaded the account, not the account to which it gets uploaded to. S3 object ownership and bucket policies. So S3 object ownership. After setting S3 object ownership to bucket owner preferred. So this is the default bucket ownership policy. You can modify the bucket policy to require all Amazon S3 put operations to include the bucket owner full control, canned ACL. So bucket owner full control canned ACL. You can set this as the default policy. And control over new objects. This ACL gives the bucket owner complete control over new objects, and combined with S3 object ownership setting, it transfers object ownership to the bucket owner. Uploader. If the uploader fails to include the required ACL in their upload, the request will fail. And uniform object ownership. So this mechanism enables bucket owners to enforce uniform object ownership across all newly uploaded objects in their buckets. Okay, next is Access Analyzer for Amazon S3. On the Amazon S3 console, Access Analyzer for Amazon S3 can be utilized to review all buckets. Access types can be access control list, ACLs, bucket policies, or access point policies that allow. So there are 3 types of access types on the S3 bucket. Okay, next is access levels. Access levels can be public or shared access. Then access analyzer for Amazon S3 send alerts about buckets configured to grant access to anyone on the internet or other AWS accounts, including AWS accounts outside of your organization. For each public or shared bucket, findings are provided that report the source and level of public or shared access. So this is a tool for basically auditing all the access, what kind of access they have, public, shared, who is the owner, and if there are any findings and alerts. Okay, encrypting data in Amazon S3. First, data protection. So data protection is about safeguarding data during its transit, data traveling to and from Amazon S3 and while at rest when it is stored on disks in Amazon S3 data centers. Data in transit can be protected using secure socket layer or transport layer security, SSL, TLS, or client-side encryption. Providing the appropriate level of protection for your data in transit ensures the confidentiality and integrity of your workload's data from potential interception while in transit. The AWS API is a REST service that supports SSL TLS connections, hence all official AWS SDKs and CLI tools connect to AWS API using SSL TLS by default. Data at rest protection. For data at rest, data already stored on disk, Amazon S3 offers two options: server-side encryption and client-side encryption. So first, let's see server-side encryption. When using server-side encryption, Amazon S3 encrypts an object before it is stored to disk and decrypts it when you download the object. Access. Provided that you are authenticated and have the necessary access permissions, there is no distinction in how you access encrypted or unencrypted objects. If you share your objects using pre-signed URL, the URL operates identically for both encrypted and unencrypted objects. When you list objects in your bucket, the list API returns a compilation of all objects regardless of their encryption status. Okay, server-side encryption with Amazon S3 managed keys. The server-side encryption with Amazon S3 managed keys, SSE S3, is used to encrypt objects. With SSE S3, each object is encrypted with a unique key. The unique key is further encrypted with a master key that is regularly rotated for added security. Amazon S3 server-side encryption employs the 256-bit advanced encryption standard known as AES-256, one of the strongest block ciphers available to encrypt data. Okay, server-side encryption with AWS Key Management Service. 1. Server-side encryption with Customer Master Keys, CMKs, stored in AWS Key Management Service, SSE KMS, is an encryption service similar to SSE S3. SSE KMS offers additional benefits over SSE S3 and charges may apply for using this service. With SSE KMS, there are separate permissions for the use of a customer master key, providing added protection against unauthorized access to your objects in Amazon S3. SSE KMS provides an audit trail that shows who used the CMK and when it was used. You have the option to create and manage your own customer managed CMK. So sorry, this is customer managed, not customer master key, customer managed. So you have the option to create and manage your own customer managed CMKs or use AWS managed CMKs that are unique to your service and your region. Server-side encryption with customer provided keys. With server-side encryption with customer provided keys, SSEC, you have the ability to manage your own encryption keys. Despite you managing your own keys, Amazon S3 still takes care of the actual encryption as it writes to disks and the decryption when you access your objects. With SSEC, the responsibility of managing and rotating the keys falls to the customer shoulders. Without access to these customer provided keys, the data stored on Amazon S3 cannot be decrypted. So this is because your customer is providing the keys, and if they lose or something, these data you will not be able to decrypt it. So I think last is client-side encryption. So client-side encryption refers to the process of encrypting sensitive data before sending it to Amazon S3. With client-side encryption, the encryption operation is performed locally, meaning your data never leaves your run environment in an unencrypted state. When using client-side encryption, you maintain possession of your master encryption keys and they are never sent to AWS. It is crucial that you safely store your master encryption key, that is as a file, for example as a file or using a separate key management system, and load them when uploading or downloading the objects. This approach ensures that no one outside of your environment has access to your master keys, and without access to the customer master keys, your data cannot be decrypted. If you lose your master encryption keys, you will not be able to decrypt your own data. Therefore, if you use client-side encryption, it is vital that you store your keys safely. So enable client-side encryption. You can use a customer master key CMK stored in AWS Key Management Service, AWS KMS. In this scenario, an AWS KMS CMK is utilized for client-side encryption when uploading or downloading data in Amazon S3. Alternatively, you can use a master key stored within your application. With this approach, you provide a client-side master key to the Amazon S3 encryption client. The client uses the master key solely for encrypting the data encryption key that it generates randomly. And that's all. Thanks for watching.